city of Schafford, Oregon. We ask these things through Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Very good. We will move on, and I am looking for a motion to approve the agenda. On a quick note, there is an item that is on the, let me get myself set up, the city manager comments and reports. It's our housing element update. It was not able to get printed in the agenda. Something happened to our software. If for some reason you're looking for it, it is in the foyer. There are paper copies available. So just to make note on that, council, as we make that approval, we are approving it, I would presume amended, because that it is printed and not in the digital, correct? Okay.
I so move.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Proud. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Council Member Espinoza. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Givens.
Yes. And then moving on to, I think, what everybody is in here for, and I see a lot of medals here. We're going to move into some presentations, and we'll start with our Shafter Boxing Club. Flip the mic, right? All right, very good. It looks like there are a handful of you who have some really cool medals. Some are bigger than you. Just throwing that out there to you, Jerica. So I'm going to call each of your names, have you guys come up here. We also have some representatives from Dr. Jasmine Baines' office and Senator Melissa Hurtado's office. They will also be handing them out. I don't know if we have the same order. We're going to try our best to figure out what's going to happen. So we'll work through this, all right? All right, first up, Edgar Martinez Jr. First place in 8-year-old boys 80-pound division. Fair, fair. Oh, come on, man.
See how cute they are.
Yeah.
All right. 10-year-old. Derek. What? First place in the 9-10-year-old boys. Not Reese, first place in the 11-12-year-old. I get all the kids up here. They came back with the team belt this year. I want to thank the council for acknowledging us and but thank you guys so much, because it really means a lot to the kids, you know.
Oh, you want us down?
Thank you.
But every year we get it, we acknowledge we made it to Silver Cup Nationals and we won, and we've always council always looked out for us. So thank you guys. But this year we came back with the team belt, so this is real special year for us. Right, guys? So. So we also have, Assemblyman or House Representative, David Valadeo. His office was not able to be here today. So kiddos, you'll have another one coming from his office here shortly. Councilman is getting his information right now so we can get that stuff to you. So you will have that one coming to you as well. I like where we're going. All right, on to our next one. This is for our Shasta High wrestlers. So we want to recognize them tonight. Start with the boys side. First place at Valley Championships and sixth place at Masters Championship, Rafael Roman Amadou. For our ladies side, first place at Valley Championship, second place at Masters Championship, and seventh place at CIF State Championship, Julissa Gonzalez. One more time. One more time. More time. Don't run yet. Don't run yet.
We didn't get them, but we will get them soon. So sorry about that. I wish I would have apologized. Yeah.
Come on, coach. I didn't say your name. I'm so sorry. Coach Eli Esper. Ethan Ryder. Ethan Ryder is the coach. I apologize. What's going on?
Apologize on behalf of our son, we will not convey this, but I will get some certificates. I will work and bring them tomorrow when I grab them. I must have right here and leave them with somebody at the moment. I apologize.
Getting the same from Valadeo.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So I must say that's a cool experience. I got a chance to talk to some of your families and just the experience getting to travel, going out of state for a little bit, getting to see some other folks, not just in California, not just seeing the same ones that you wrestle here, you know, and just having the chance to see something from a national level. That's a really cool experience and something that, I mean, you guys are young, you're a little older, but for the most part, you all are very young, and having the opportunity to do that now, to meet people at this age and have the resources that you have in front of you, that's a testament to your families. So make sure you thank your families. Make sure you let them know that their support doesn't go unnoticed. Make sure you let your coach know that his support doesn't go unnoticed either. That's a lot that he has to take out for himself just to make sure you all are taken care of. So congratulations to our wrestling team. Congratulations to our, not wrestling, boxing team. Congratulations to our wrestling team as well. Again, going on to state level is not easy. You guys have a lot of competition, and the picture's a little scary, but you can wrestle well, Julissa. So you got this. Don't worry about it. But to both of you, congratulations in how far you've made it and what you were able to accomplish, and just again having the opportunities that were afforded to you. Congrats to your families for supporting you, and to your coaches as well. Silence is golden. I love the silence. So in much anticipation, if you want to stay and join us for council meeting, you can. You are also more than welcome to go at this time. That is completely up to you. We'll give you guys the time to do it.
Thank you guys again.
Thank you. Thank you, Carlos. Hey, Jerica, take care of your dad for me. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, very good. With that said, we will move on to public comments. This portion is open for those persons wishing to speak on any item included on the agenda or on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. And you were invited to speak at the podium. We ask that speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless additional time is needed. Please state your name and address for the record before making your comment. Public comment time is open. That is the podium. Yes, yes, ma'am. You're good. You're good.
Want to go beyond. You have him here.
And he's behind you too. Watch out.
My name is Rose Moreno. I live at 551 Pozo Street in Shafter, California. Been a resident of Shafter about 95% of my life. I'm proud to be a citizen of Shafter. I'm very grateful for the council. I'm very grateful for everything you've done for Shafter. Kathy, you've done a great job. Chad, you're continuing everything. Gilbert, you've always been there for, and Pete, I went to school with Pete and he's a great asset to this. I don't really know Gustavo, I apologize, but I look forward to seeing you more in the meetings and getting to know you. I just wanted to come up here and say thank you very, very much for the job that you did on the Pozo Street. We got a sidewalk. We've got a new gutter and the drainage. It's absolutely beautiful. They did a great job. We were uncomfortable for a little bit, but we knew that, it wasn't that as bad as it was. And I'm trying to remember that young man's name that overseen the project.
Alex.
It was Alex,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
Yes, and he was, just the communication that he had with every member, every one of our neighbors, every single one of us, he was there. He was talking with us, he was leaving flyers. And I just wanted to say that Shafter did a great, awesome, beautiful job. And we don't have to worry this summer about the little flies or those little insects when the gutter would overflow. And just on behalf of my neighbors, we just want to say thank you very much. You did an awesome job and we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mike, congrats to you too, sir. You could probably share that information with Alex as well, but I know you had a lot of work to do in that street repair that happened.
Alex deserves most of the credit. I can attest, and I'll be sure to relay your kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, the
Thank you.
street does look very, very nice. I drove by there last week and I'm going, wow, it really does look nice.
Very beautiful. People,
It's-
you don't have to worry about them tripping over the
Mhm.
grass. And the drainage,
Yeah.
that's just, and especially the storm that we just.
Mhm.
But it just-
Right. Yeah, you waited a long time, but it happened. Yeah. Thank you.
The storms didn't help how long it took to get it done. I mean, the rain's nice, but that didn't help very much either. Very good. Any other public comments? Yes.
Good
Hello.
afternoon. My name is Giselle and I live at 340 Chris Court. I'm coming on behalf of CSUB and I believe that in unmet transit that needs to be done in the city would be a more safe crosswalk, especially on Highway 43. This is because when I'm on my way to school or when I take my sister to school, I see many students crossing the highway. And they normally do wait for the crosswalk, but I feel like a lot of drivers are in such a hurry to get their kids to school that they often don't really pay attention to the kids that are trying to get to school. And I feel like especially children who go to the high school need to cross that crosswalk because not all of them have transportation. So I believe that a safer crosswalk should be something that should be done on Highway 43, especially for those who, you know, don't have a ride to school and from school. But yeah, that would be very nice.
May I ask, is there a specific area you're looking at?
Well, I live like behind Apple Market, so I normally use that street a lot, like
To Larry coming
Yes.
in there.
so turning there, you know, there's like the crosswalk across the street, kind of where Family Dollar is at, and that liquor store. And I see a lot of children don't really use that one. They kind of just like go like in between.
From like
Apple
the
Market.
O'Reilly's and cross right across.
Yeah.
there.
Go
And,
to Riley's, yeah.
Yes.
Don't.
And a lot of drivers, you know, they're in a hurry to take their kids, so they just, you know, pass by and they don't really let the kids like go by. I kind of understand why the kids would cross through there. It's unsafe, of course, but you know, they're late to school, so they're trying to get there just like everybody else driving their cars. So yeah, I think that's something that should be brought more attention into.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Mayor, for clarification from the speaker, we do have a public hearing for unmet transit needs, but it sounded what she was referring more to as transportation related to the road, more pedestrian related safety
Yes.
measure than unmet transit needs. So I just want to make that clarification because we do have that public hearing later.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. And the right people are in the room to have that conversation. So I know our Public Works Director does have conversation. That is a Caltrans road. And so, you know, we do what we can. And I know he pushes quite a bit on doing more there because we really need Caltrans to give us that blessing, if you will. But having someone come up and actually speak that verbally, having it on record, that's information he gets to go back with and have conversation with. So thank you for coming up and doing that. I appreciate that. Very good. Any other public comment? Nothing online? Okay. All right, with that, public comment time is closed. I'll move into some council announcements. Mr. Pete, I will start with you, sir. Dalia.
On the first, I attended the strategic planning interview for the strategic planning retreat. On the 2nd of March, I attended the Kern Cogs Award for the Shafter Library that was recognized for all of its accomplishments. I'd like to say thank you to David Franz and the staff, and also our partnership with Bakersfield College. On March 4th, we had the strategic planning retreat, and that was interesting. There was a lot of information. We spent Saturday at the police office, the conference room, and we talked about a lot of things that had to do with the city. On the 6th, I attended the police ceremonial promotion ceremony. It was a great turnout of family and friends for the officers that were receiving ceremony promotions. And I'd like to thank them for all their hard work and congratulate them also. And that's it.
Very good. Gus?
All right, good afternoon, everybody. On Saturday, March 4th, I attended the strategic planning meeting over at the Police Department conference room. Thought it was pretty informative, and I think we got a lot done and completed with that on future planning for the city. Also attended on the promotional ceremony at the police department on Monday, March 6th in the morning. Thank you, Chief, for putting that on. I think it was an excellent ceremony, recognizing those officers that have promoted in the last 2-3 years. Thank you for that. Also, I apologize for missing the Kern Cog Awards banquet for our learning center. I was under the weather, but got some pictures. Thank you for sending that, Mr. City Manager. I look pretty, everybody looked sharp.
Mhm.
Nice award and everything like that. So, and that is all I have to report on.
Very good. Gilbert?
I just want to say, congratulations to all the police officers that got promoted. I was not able to attend. It was just during, the day, which, you know, couldn't get off work. But again, I just want to say congratulations to every one of them who got promoted. And also I did attend the current COG ceremony where the Shafter Library was acknowledged and they received an award. I want to say congratulations to Dr. Fran and all his staff that makes the library and the Shafter Learning Center very successful. Also, we had a strategic workshop on Saturday, and I think that was a very good, everybody turned out, it was a good turnout. We missed Mike, but everything was a good turnout, and you were noticed, Mike, you weren't there. So, but no, everybody was there. I mean, yeah, it was a good turnout. I think it was very successful. So I think now, I think we all have, I think that's an icebreaker for all of us to get to know each other a little bit more better and understanding. Now I know who's the ones that get up early and those that go sleep late.
We learned some things, you're right.
So that's all.
Very good. Ms. Prout?
Yes, sir. On the 23rd of February, I attended a session at the Learning Center put on by Era Energy, and it was exposing our young people, and they were all sixth graders, for job opportunities from just applying or looking at what Era offers. There's a multitude of jobs and opportunities just in that one company. And so there was a lot to think about. And I know that the students later had a chance to even demonstrate or had a cupcake and they could push their straw down inside and see if they can hit oil in the bottom. So it was really a good combination of interaction as well as hearing about job opportunities. It was well received. I thought she did an excellent job. Also, there was a REAP housing workshop that I had to listen to on Zoom. We didn't meet together, although that, as you all know, that's changing and we will be doing that. But what was really a strong emphasis, and it's been ongoing now for a while, is the whole program from the state is offering $19.9 million, and they funnel all their funds through the local COGS. Kern County, which includes Shafter, will have $1,001,000 that can be worked with within our small cities. And Fresno, which is another comparison to us, is getting $1,114,000. So the money is distributed according to the sizes and whatever, and it helps to study our housing element, which we're going to get even a little report on later and see how that all fits together. But it's funding to help promote housing. Also, high-speed rail update we had was attended by the city manager and the mayor and myself, which they will continue to have updates. They're struggling right now, again, because they have a lack of funding and they're looking and needing over $11 billion. And so there's not a whole lot of movement. They still have some employees working up the valley. But right now there won't be much to see in our own area. And so we'll continue to get updates as that goes along. Also, a fun thing that we get to do, and I don't know who else on the council went besides the mayor and myself, but regional oral language. And that's another tough one because COVID really kind of slowed down everybody. And there wasn't quite a large group like there has been in the past, but we had students from 4th grade through 8th grade that competed. And I know you had singles. You did.
No, I did a humorous duo.
Duo?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I did a verse choir, which they had maybe 3, 4, or 5 people in their group. And it's really interesting. And it was a regional, which included Shafter Schools, Maple, and Wasco. And the winners that we picked then have an opportunity to go into the next level, and they'll be held in Bakersfield. Of course, the regional awards, we've been there and it's really exciting because you get a variety of regional projects. Ours was under innovation. Innovation's always an important and a fun one because it's something that's new that you get to appeal to other people. And what was exciting when it's over with, there's people from all over the county there. They come from Taft all the way over to Tehachapi, Ridgecrest, and whatever. And they came to all of us and made very positive remarks. Our project is very unique. No other city owns, well, very few cities own their own library. And I don't know that they have a library and a learning center like we do. So it really stands out for us, and we know we're very proud and excited about the whole deal, but when others come and tell you that, it's even more. It was very nice. Then, the strategic workshop, we had staff, our directors of staff, there were about 16 or 17 of us all together there. And we talked and got to know about each other. As you said, we find out a lot of things personally about each other, but then we talk about visioning or looking to the future of this city, which we're at the stage now where we really need to reach out there, get out of the box, really jump out there and find out how do we see it and how are we going to get there. So keep watching. There'll be some opportunities coming along as we continue to plan. Then, of course, the promotional ceremony, and Chief, you know, it was disappointing that we couldn't recognize them as they promoted because of COVID. But I'm telling you, to see the big crowd come together with the support of their families and friends that came, it's really exciting. And I'm sure it's not only exciting, exceptionally exciting for you, but for each one of those officers who really can stand very proud. I mean, we rank very well in public safety in this community, and it shows how proud they are to be an officer for us. And you tell them thank you again. That's all I have.
Been busy, to say the
Yeah,
least.
yeah.
It's been busy.
Fun.
I share your sentiments, by the way, Rose. I saw your face when she was talking about high-speed rail. I share your sentiments.
Yes, we all do. We all do. Yeah.
It has been busy. One other item that Mayor Pro Tem was at, this last week was our Read Across America week as well. And so I know you were reading at Sequoia. You and I were there. I think there were about 30 readers,
Yes.
25 or 30 readers from people in the community to high school students. I think there was right about 14 high school students who got to go read. Really cool experience. So a big thank you to Sequoia School. I know Miss Roya Eubanks did a lot of work on that, putting that together. So great job for her. Friday, we got a chance to go read at Grow Academy. And again, really cool experience. That one was really nice because I got to actually read in the classroom with my oldest daughter. She read with me. So that was a really neat experience, but it was even better because we read into my twins' classroom. So it was kind of a whole little family ordeal.
Mhm.
So that was really neat to have that moment. So really appreciative, Miss Katie Wiebe putting that together. If you gentlemen ever get the chance, if you see the emails come across, especially at Grow, they fill up really fast. So if you see the email or you hear about it, take a quick look at the calendar and see if you can make it. It's a really cool experience. They give you a huge selection of books to read from, so you can pick as large or as small as you want and have fun with that. I do know that there's a lot that's happening as well in regards to, we're getting ready to have our first meeting for our downtown plaza. We talked about it a few weeks ago. And so tomorrow we get a chance to actually have a conversation and sit down with business owners and figure out what's the next event, or what is the event that we're going to be able to do for our downtown folks, for our community. It's all got to be family focused, family friendly. And that's the thing that matters the most. And that's what you see here tonight when you see people getting the awards. And family is the crux of what makes up a community. And without a family, a community can never grow. It can never succeed. And it's great when you see that with the police department, when the families are honoring their own. And we want to keep that going on here. So that's going to be the goal. We start those meetings tomorrow for events throughout the summer. We're very excited for that. I know City Manager will have more to update on us for our economic development conversations, but we met with a great team. Today, I in my child's mind, it's mind blown on what we can talk about for economic developments and where we can go and what we can take the city to. I think ultimately what we are looking at is not thinking on this small term. We've got to start pulling it up to a global thinking. And one of the words that was used Saturday, it's still my favorite word, I can't leave it, is iconic. How do we create Shafter to be that iconic place, the place that is a destination that people want to be a part of, and the place that families want to live and grow here. I think, and I will apologize, I think I used the median age of 35 years old. Shafter's median age is 35. Today, I learned something new. You heard me kind of cough when I saw that. I'm completely wrong. Shafter's median age is just about 30 years old. It's 29.6. So if you want to know what the median age, that midpoint of what Shafter is at, it's about 29 years old. We're a very, very young community. And so the family system has to be the top priority on what we do for economic development moving forward. And just know that I believe wholeheartedly that the council body here and the staff, especially after Saturday, understands that, believes that, is going to focus on that. And I believe everyone's putting their best foot forward. So great job to everyone who participated and to all the many moving parts that are happening moving forward. This is going to be a great year. This is going to be a great next 5, 10, 20 years. So I'm really excited for this. With that being said, I am going to go ahead and move on to consent calendar. Excuse me. There are 9 items on consent calendar tonight. I will briefly read over these. Number 1, approve general checks. Number 2, approve payroll. Number 3, approving minutes from February 21st, both meetings that day for February 21st. Number 4 is to approve a cost proposal submitted by Krazan and Associates for the Santa Fe Way project for a total of amount not to exceed $25,000. Number 5, submit a letter of support for a water system consolidation project over in the Roxy Lane and Santa Fe Way area. Number 6, approve plans and specifications for the City Hall roof improvement project and authorize formal bid procedures for said project. We've been underwater quite a bit lately. Number 7, approve the salvage of 2 Shafter Police Department patrol vehicle units. Number 8, ratify the city manager approval of a proposal in the amount of $15,000 submitted by NV5 for preparing the NEM 2.0 grandfathering interconnection applications. And number 9, ratify a professional services agreement with the Institute for Local Government in the amount not to exceed $25,000 for a 2-session scope of work for the governance workshop Shafter Strategic Planning. Looking for a motion for approval, please.
A motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilman Olvera. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Prout. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Gibbon.
Yes, very good. We are going to now move into our public hearings. Tonight, we have one item on our public hearings. It is the public hearing and resolution of the City Council of the City of Shafter establishing unmet transit needs findings for the fiscal year of 2023 through 2024.
Charlie Marion Council, this is a routine ministerial matter which we have to hold a public hearing on an annual basis related to our funding that we have to submit annually. With that, our finance director that oversees the transit operation will make the presentation. Roger.
Mayor Givens and council members, Roger Sanchez, Finance Director, I'd like to provide a brief report regarding the public transit. So the goal is to conduct a public hearing tonight and to determine if there's any unmet needs for the next fiscal year. So the funding comes from TDA for those especially who are new to TDA. Funding, anything that is in excess of the public transportation, it goes to local streets. So it's very important funding for the city. As part of the requirement, we have to conduct each year a public hearing where to determine if there's any unmet needs that the public has. So I also like to discuss a few recent inquiries regarding, as you know, the city is growing. There's a segment of the wonderful industrial park and there's the Customer Grove. There's no public transit on that area. Our current services are within the core area. And so there's been a couple of people who have asked about in the Customer Grove area. And so we've tried to look at the different options. And among some of the options is, do we extend services to that area? Or do we partner with the other agencies close to Bakersfield, well, including the current transit, which drives from Delano or Wasco, drives through Shafter, and it takes the route to Lerdo Highway. So if they would go into 7 Standard, they would really help us out, but we're trying to meet with them still. Also, we're trying to meet with the Get Bus as well. There's also been recently an inquiry about the industrial park from the wonderful company, so we're gonna try to meet with them as soon as possible and see if we can brainstorm and look at some options as well. The fact is that as the city grows and there's warehouses, we should start looking more into our options. It's also worth pointing out that there's been additional funding more than above and beyond because of recent COVID. So for the next 4 years, we have additional funding. In other words, if we were to add another part-time driver or another driver, it wouldn't really impact the rest of the funding because that's available. In essence, as we spend money, we request a refund. So if we don't use it, then we would lose that as well. So that's something to keep in mind as we consider the options for the future. So I already mentioned the increase. It is also worth noting a couple of challenges that we faced recently. I mentioned the current transit. It's hard to coordinate with them. We're working on that, but also we have electric buses, which sometimes they're unreliable. Unfortunately, the state is requiring us to get electric buses, and also whenever there's grant opportunities for buses, they say, no, you have to get an electric bus. And so that's a challenge because we're a small agency and we don't have extra fleet. If something breaks, we have to go back and get the old vans. And so that's something that I'll need to explore with city manager as to, should we get an extra van as a backup that is gasoline? But we would have to spend a little bit of money, not general fund money, but because they're not willing to give us grant money for gas vans. So I already discussed some of that. I'd like to provide some insight into historical Fairfax revenue. And as you can see, during the pandemic, there was a significant drop in 1920 fiscal year, and then in 2021 fiscal year, that was the lowest. We've seen a nice recovery in 21-22 fiscal year. Those are the actual dollars at almost 40,000, almost equivalent to the 1920 year. Year to date, we're still looking into those numbers, and the budget, I think we'll probably surpass the 30,000 or 31,000 that we projected. So hopefully that'll be the case. So this is operating expenses. You can see on the pink, those are labor cost, pretty consistent year over year. And this is the M&O section for the public transit. And those are the totals, operating expenses for transit. But this line represents the percentage of, what we charge as fees. So there has to be at least 10% of the Fairfax revenue has to cover the operating expenses. And so we came way lower in 2021. Thank goodness we recover in 21-22. So we're in a safe zone right now at close to 13% coverage. So with that, I would like to ask council to conduct a public hearing and to determine if there's any unmet needs from the public, and if you can, to approve the resolution 2907. And with that, if you have any questions.
Very good. Okay, with that, we will open the public hearing for comments. Yeah, absolutely.
My name is Rose Moreno, 551 Pozo Street, Shafter, California. My question is, thank you so much for that presentation. I wasn't aware that it was gonna be this much detail. I'm very happy. But you said that, you know, you could get another driver. I noticed that it was FT and PT, so it's part-time or full-time. Now, would that be for only 4 years? Or, to be with the budget?
So that's a really good question. That would need to be analyzed and discussed with the city manager. Eventually, it'll be brought to council. But we need to look at different options, including the current transit option and also the Get Bus, and perhaps also private contracting, depending on what the needs are. And what our options are. We do have excess, there were excess grants in recent years that are gonna cover an extra 4 years. But regardless, the TDA funding require us to cover the public transit first before we cover the streets, construction and things. So there's a lot of planning and coordination that still needs to be needs to take place still.
So would there be an opportunity to bring Saturday pickups back?
If this is if there's a request, that's something that we can go back. We haven't, as you can see, the recovery hasn't happened yet, as compared to pre-pandemic time. And so we're much lower than what it used to be. If the public has a need and they begin to speak and say, what, you know, if they need additional hours, the city would consider that.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may, just for clarification from Ms. Moreno. She mentioned, aside from the comment about the driver recruitment, but she mentioned Saturday pickup. So it is a public hearing for unmet transit needs. I want to clarify that. Is she making a public comment related to the city evaluating Saturday pickup, or is it just a comment about drivers and Saturday pickup? Because it is a public hearing and take comment on unmet transit needs.
You asking for clarification?
Yeah, from
Okay, so no, he's looking at me. I think he's asking you. at the
through
same time.
you.
Through me. So he's looking at the clarification on the Saturday comment.
Because of the,
I was just as lost there. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, no worries.
I was,
Well, because pre-COVID,
yeah,
before COVID, I really don't like that phrase because it's just horrible that we have to say that. But before COVID, there was Saturday opportunities that were
Mhm.
pickups on Saturday that the Dial-A-Ride worked on Saturdays. And now, you know, and I totally understand looking at your graphics. I think 2021 was a lot of expensive because you got to put plastic and you know what I mean? There was a lot of material and a lot of stuff that had to go on with the drivers and everything that, you know, to keep us safe. But I was just curious. I mean, like he said, there's the funding, if there was going to be an opportunity to bring back the Saturday pickups, you know, because I know that there's a few, you know, there's people who in our community that, you know, need help, especially some of the elderly. I know a few of my relatives, I mean, which I don't mind picking up and helping out, but there's you know, sometimes I have to work and I just thought, you know, and you know, and it was only till noon. I believe it was only till noon, the pickup. I could be wrong. But I just wanted to see if there was an opportunity to bring that back.
very good. Does that help with the
Yes, it
clarification?
does.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, very good. I'm going to go ahead and close public comment time. Council, any comments to make? Any questions, comments, concerns?
Mayor, not through you again, just a quick comment to council that a few months back, Current Cog reached out to us. Current Cog is the agency that administers transportation money. And they asked for a letter of support from the city for them to submit a grant application to conduct a feasibility study for regional transit service, rather than each city having their own and then the county having its own service and then you have GET. they want to study. It's been talked about in the past, from what I understand, is to possibly look at a countywide regional transit service that would service the unincorporated as well as the incorporated cities of Kern County under one service provider. So that's just informational, since we are talking about transit unmet transit needs, that Kern County is looking to conduct a study for that as well. So.
Very good. I presume through this Kern Cog is going to take even this information back as well, because I believe the next step is through Kern Cog. Yes. Okay. We're moving on. Just want to make sure we're good on questions. If not, will request a motion for approval in a second.
I move that we accept the unmet transit need findings.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Prout and a second by Councilman Olvera. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Given.
Yes, and to follow up, that information will be relayed as we move forward. The next step of that is with Kern Cog. Okay, very good. No other public hearings. We'll move into management reports. Management report item number 1 is to award a professional services agreement to TJKM Transportation Consultants in an amount of $50,000 to provide traffic study peer review services. City Manager?
Mayor and Council, our Public Works Director, make the staff report on this, Mike.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the Shaft City Council, Public Works investigates traffic safety concerns reported by the public and periodically recommends road improvements to address those concerns, including speed limits, stop signs, and parking restrictions. In some cases, these improvements involve high-profile, heavily traveled routes where it's advisable to have additional input from someone with an extensive background in traffic safety and regulations. Some examples that come to mind are Lerdo Highway, where we're considering stop signs and new crosswalks at the intersections of Schneid and Poplar, as well as Los Angeles and Avenue and Tulare Avenue, which are fairly wide streets that are meant to move traffic, but there's a considerable amount of pedestrian traffic that we need to accommodate as well. So to address these circumstances, Public Works is proposing an on-call arrangement with a consultant to provide what we call a peer review. So we'd like this firm to be TJKM for the, at least for the streets that I previously mentioned. In 2020, this firm submitted the highest ranked proposal for preparing a local road safety plan for Shafter and other communities in Kern County. The plan was ultimately completed last year, and it will help the city and other cities secure more road improvement funding in the future. This firm has also performed similar on-call arrangement for other cities and is ready to commence work for Shafter upon council authorization. It's important to point out that staff has already prepared draft plans and studies with recommendations for these traffic corridors that I mentioned. We're simply requesting some outside input to ensure that what we're recommending is safe and practical. So an appropriate budget to cover our most immediate needs is $50,000. This funding can come from existing capital improvement and operational accounts without the need for budget action by the council. So with that, we're recommending an award of professional services contract to TJKM, and that concludes staff presentation on this item.
Very good. For a quick clarification to council, there are 3 items here that they would be doing the analysis on. I thought I only heard 2, that's why I say that. Tulare Avenue between Poplar Avenue and Wall Street. It is on that side of 43 past Apple Market. Lerdo Highway between Poplar Avenue and Schneid. I would imagine you see a lot of traffic issue on that one. That's a fairly heavily used road. And then number 3 was the Los Angeles Avenue between Schneid Street and Shafter Avenue. That actually would be beneficial there with all of the Grow School that's happening in that area. So just so everyone's aware of the 3 that were on this list. With that said, looking for a motion for approval, please.
I just have a quick question. How long would this take once approved again? Did you say?
On approval by the council, we'll issue a contract. We could probably commence fairly soon. The goal would be to have recommendations before you for improvements by this summer.
And then at that point, then it would just be,
A matter of hiring a contractor or doing the work in-house to complete the work.
okay, and then from there, how much more longer from there to put the stop signs up?
That's what I was referring to. So we would come to you right before the end of, before summertime to get approval to install those signs, and then in the summer, we would install them.
Okay,
So
Oh.
by school time, it would be ready to
Correct.
go.
Correct.
okay. And just for clarification, city manager, this will cover that one area on Tulare? That
By
we-
the new homes developed.
Correct. We're looking at that Tulare area that's been brought to our
Mhm.
attention before, as well
in
as
Laredo.
more recently, the concerns along Lerdo and near Grow Academy on Los
Yeah.
Angeles.
3 of them. Mhm.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilman Alvarado, a second by Councilman Olvera. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes,
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Givens.
Yes. Very good. Moving on to item number 2. It is a fiscal year 2022-2023 mid-year budget update.
Sorry, Mayor and Council, is that time again, mid-year budget review, as quickly as time's going. And so with that, our finance director, Roger, will make that presentation. Roger.
Mr. Mayor, council members. So I would like to give a quick update on the mid-year and provide some information on this. So it is worth noting to mention briefly the current status of the year that we're trying to close, and that is the 21-22 year. We're trying to close that. We hope to bring before council the annual financial reports sometime in April. So hopefully next month, that's our goal. And if as things are going, we should be caught up. And for the current fiscal year, that is the 22-23, we should be able to close by December. And so that'll keep us finally back on track on where we should be. So we look forward on that. We do expect a surplus on the general fund for the 21-22, and I'll provide some information, more details on the next, when we bring next month. Also, we do expect to have a surplus on the general fund for the current fiscal year 22-23. It is worth noting that so the council has approved some labor cost changes recently in the past few months, because there's been some vacancies, especially within the police department. There's been some savings. We haven't spent the way we were expecting on labor costs. So that's another reason to that we expect a surplus. So overall, the budget is going as planned. We're within budget on most items. We're going to request a couple of items, but again, we do expect the surplus. So there's not a whole lot to look at. So one of them is we're requesting an increase for the facilities maintenance of $30,000. This is mainly because there was some extra cost that we did not anticipate from the correctional building. In essence, still continuing to pay electricity, utilities, and some other maintenance things that took place as well. So we're asking for that adjustment. And also $80,000 for the planning department related to labor cost. And this has already been approved by council last year, but the actual cost didn't really materialize until the current year. So we're making that adjustment. But in other words, we did not really spend it last year when we anticipated, but we did spend it this year. And there were some from the departure of our latest senior planner, that was some vacation paid outs and things like that. So we're asking for that adjustment, and that's pretty much it. I'd like to give you some overview of what's happening with the budget and expenses. So citywide, this is the labor cost, historical expenses. As you can see, the year-to-date 22-23 of 9.6. So we're still in the middle of the year. Our budget is $15.3 million. So we do expect to be within that range by the end of the year. There's the M&O expenses as well. We have utilities and insurance cost for a total citywide operating cost. And so this excludes the correctional facilities so that it's more relevant. This is the same citywide labor cost, but just by itself, so you can view what's going on with labor cost and where things are headed. Power, this is electric cost. As you can see, all funds is the first historical trend. And then this is the power cost for the water department. So lots of pumping and things, very expensive. And the combined total up, electric cost, historical cost. So one of the interesting things is the annual compound growth rate for the water is 6.19%. So this is a 5-year growth rate compared to over 15%. So clearly there's a difference on the growth of the cost, and that's probably attributed to some of the cost savings on the solar projects from the water. That would be my guess there. And so there's could be opportunities as well for the other funds to consider other solar projects potentially. Now this is a focus on the general fund. So this is general fund revenues. Taxes is the blue on the bottom, and the other ones are much smaller compared to taxes. So the main source of revenues for general fund is taxes. So this excludes correction, fees from the CCF and also from grants. So I'm not including the grants there. This is general fund operating revenues and expenses. This is labor cost on the bottom, and then the M&O and the total cost for, again, general fund. So this compares the operating, the general fund operating revenues versus operating expenses. And so you can see that we're able to cover, revenues are able to cover operating expenses. So staff is recommending that the council approves the two requested adjustments for the budget. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
If I may, just going to add for clarification for the record to reflect that we're talking about the two budget amendments in the dollar amount of $30,000 for the MCCF utility costs and the $80,000 to the planning department for a total of $110,000.
Very good. Any other questions from council before we move on? All right, very good. I'm looking for a motion for approval, please.
I'll motion to approve.
I have a motion by Councilman Olvera, needing a second.
I'll second.
A second by Mayor Pro Tem Prout. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes.
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yes.
and Givens.
Yes. Very good. Moving on to our last management reports. Number 3, consideration of proposed funding list for the use of Federal American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 Phase 2 funding, otherwise known as ARPA.
So, Mayor and Council, hard to believe that we were once upon a time in a pandemic. this money, ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, is a result of the pandemic that we found ourselves a couple of years back or 3 years ago. So as you recall, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 it was a federal earmark passed by the federal government to assist municipalities, counties, states as a result of the pandemic that we all experienced related to loss of services, loss of revenue. It was intended to backfill revenues that municipalities lost. So the appropriation was made in two different formulas. The city was a non-entitled city, and so therefore we got a flat amount based on our CDBG allocation percentage. The total amount the city received in two installments was approximately $3.8 million. And so the city, consistent with the allowed criteria for the expenditure, was respond to the public health emergency related to COVID-19 or its negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, and aid impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. Respond to workers performing essential work during the COVID-19 public health emergency by providing premium pay to eligible workers. For the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue of the city due to the COVID-19 public health emergency relative to the revenues collected in the most recent full fiscal year for the city prior to the emergency. And then it allows it to make the necessary investment in water, sewer, broadband infrastructure. So let my comment stand corrected. The city received a total of 4.8, not $3.8 million. So the total amount for the city's appropriation was $4,880,353. On July 13th of 2021, the city received the installment, the first installment of two in the amount of $2,440,176. The second and final installment was received July 21st, 2022 in the same amount of 2.4 million and change. For the phase one funding, both council and staff identified projects to provide quality of life benefits to the community. And we, right here, what you see on the screen is the phase one funding list of completed projects. Okay, so the infrastructure assessment, we appropriated $25,000 to conduct an assessment of the aquatic center. In actuality, the assessment only cost $10,000, so there's a balance of $14,750. There was also Mantle Park irrigation supply line of $150,000. Actual is 35. Currently, there's a balance of 114,000. Then we have internet access and outdoor recreation for the learning center in the amount of 163,500. The actual amount spent has been the $152,904, leaving a balance of 10,596. The range project, that was to add the additional, I think it was 5 chief targets. So the newer technology that allows enhanced training for officers. So that was very close to the amount appropriated of 10,945, leaving a balance of $55. Premium pay, original amount was 585, and actuality is $591,401, leaving a negative balance of 6,401. And then the COVID testing during that time, positions in education were required to do mandatory weekly testing if they were not vaccinated. Because of our learning center programs that we had tutors and some of the teachers over there, they fell under that requirement. And so we did have some staff that were not vaccinated, and so therefore they had to undergo COVID testing on a weekly basis. We had anticipated that for all city employees at one point or another. Also, there was talks about doing mandatory testing for all non-vaccinated employees. Again, ultimately, it was just the education field. So in light of that, we anticipated we set aside 280,000 for that. In actuality, we spent 31,675, leaving a balance of 248,325. And then replacement network equipment at Veterans Hall. enhancing free public Wi-Fi hotspots at Veterans Hall and the park, I believe that we were looking at, Veterans Park. The original request was $10,000. We spent 10,424, leaving a balance, a shortfall of 424. So of the original completed projects was 1.2. We spent 843, leaving a balance of 380,944, with a shortfall of 6,825. Continued projects that are still in progress. This is all phase one. We have the Veterans Park basketball court. That was the original amount of $250,000. This Veterans Park soccer field lighting, the Christmas Park field improvements, those are all under progress. The broadband at Veterans Park, that was $19,000. That's still underway. The range classroom, we had set aside $100,000. We at one time discussed moving that 100,000 over to what would have been the police temporary substation at Gossamer Grove, but we were successful in securing $6 million for the actual brick and mortars substation. So therefore, the 100,000 is no longer needed. However, with the recent rains that we've experienced, we have experienced some extensive damage to the classroom that's out there now, that older building that's there, in which the roof basically collapsed. And that was probably the last heavy rain that we had about 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Over the weekend, the roof basically just caved in. So we're going to still keep that 100,000 for whatever repairs we need to make to the facility. In addition to the, as you can imagine, there was water damage to the walls and whatnot. So we don't know the extent of that damage, but I'm thinking 100,000 should be sufficient to cover for that. We have the Samsara Light Gateway at Veterans Hall and Veterans Park. The original amount we requested was 6,500. However, after further research, we find that that's not a sufficient amount, and we actually need an additional 104,500 to complete that project. So, in summary, the subtotal for in progress projects is $1.1 million. The total for projects in phase one is 1.5. We're asking for an additional 111,000. That's comprised of the 104,500 and the 6,800 approximately from the overage that we were short. So with that, it would leave us a remaining balance of phase one monies in the amount of 804,273. Phase two, these are projects that myself, working with the executive team, our department directors, identified projects that would continue to enhance quality of life for our residents, consistent with the eligible criteria of the ARPA funding. And so here we have the Mantle Park shade structure. If you recall, we came to you here about a month or so ago when we had no choice after the state grant funding source pulled back because they were trying to force us to do a dog park. And so we said, no, thank you. And so therefore we had to basically forfeit the grant. And so we are still moving forward with the shade structure, and we reallocated $75,000 from the ARPA money to do that. And then also we appropriated $300,000 for the Mantle Park irrigation system. We've set aside approximately $302,500 for security improvements and renovations here at City Hall. As you are aware, and our police department has had to respond to several calls for service here at City Hall, in which individuals have basically trespassed into staff-only areas, potentially putting our staff at risk because of these individuals that have crossed and come into the staff areas only. So what we're looking to do as an employer, we have a responsibility to make sure that the work environment conditions in which our employees come to work are safe and protects them. And so we're looking at doing some renovations, both at city services and here at the administration office. We did get, we're still soliciting bids from contractors. The one contractor that had submitted a proposal in time for this presentation. These are actual quotes that we received from one potential construction company. And it's broken down here of 145,000 for city services and then 130,000 for administration. And then we're including a 10% contingency. So the two amounts is about 275,000, a 10% contingency gets us to the 302,500. As part of last year's budget request, we had asked for funding to renovate the Learning Center. At the time, we had rough estimates. We did not consult with the contractor to give us actual proposals. We have gone and done that, and the construction of 2 office space to relocate the Learning Center staff is $90,000. We also are asking we had appropriated funding to replace doors here at City Hall and at Veterans Hall to comply with ADA. We had earmarked it out of the general fund. What we're proposing here is to fund those door replacements using ARPA monies. So this is an ADA compliant issue. Also, we experienced here the last couple of months damage over at the Veterans Hall with broken lines under the foundation. We anticipated this to be a more significant dollar amount, but ultimately, with all the repairs, it was only $11,562. So we're asking to fund that from ARPA funding rather than the general fund. We have an opportunity with the $6 million funding that we received for the police substation over at Gossamer Grove to add some space to establish expansion of our current library services at Gossamer Grove. In talking to our education director, we believe that we would have utilization of the residents over at Gossamer Grove for library services. We have a lot of young families over there. A lot of the demographics would allow that. There's young children there. The thought is that we would open up the library services out there for the residents at Gossamer Grove and start providing city services. I think library services is one of those services, low hanging fruit, because we have now a well-established program and services. And so this 50,000 would allow us to purchase the equipment, books, also the software for the library management. Another quality of life as our library services are becoming more and more popular is the purchase of a van for a mobile library that we can deploy to serve the underserved Shafter areas. This is not like a full-blown bus or trailer anytime. This is more like a UPS size van that we'd be able to equip to buy the books and be able to take on the road literally to provide library services, books to some of those areas in the community that don't have access to our library, whether it's for transportation or whatever the case may be. It'd just be an enhanced service to our residents. And then the last one is $150,000 for Veterans Park, and that is to add perimeter fence around the basketball court area so that when kids are playing and their ball may dribble out to the road or something like that, having a perimeter fence would add additional safety to keep the ball from going out in the road. Again, thinking ahead and in a matter of being preventive with safety in mind. So the amount requested for all those projects is $1,429,062. However, 375 of that has already been earmarked. So the remaining balance is approximately $700,000 that it's of unused ARPA funding. And so on the bottom of that, you see that potential use of those remaining funds could be improvements to the aquatic center building. So point of clarification, we received the Clean California grant of approximately 2.4, 2.5 is earmarked for the reconstruction of the swimming pool, that only includes the mechanical, the plumbing, the deck, resurfacing the pool itself. There's no monies to make improvements or renovations to the locker room, the restroom area. We will make some just because it's ADA compliant issues that we have to meet anytime we make improvements. So one thought is to apply this remaining balance to the building and make improvements to that. Since we'll be making improvements to the pool, I think it just makes sense that we can apply these monies to that. The other use of those monies could go towards the water meter replacement project that's been underway. We're probably about 60%, Mike, complete.
Citywide,
75. Okay. That is, the water meter replacement project is a state mandate compliance. So we have to replace our water meters and be in compliance by 2025. So both of them are very viable projects. One improves our infrastructure, but we have other means of which to be able to do a water meter replacement. The aquatic center building, we wouldn't. That would need to come out of our general fund. So if we wanted to preserve the general fund, we can earmark the remaining balance to the aquatic center building, the locker room area itself. So I know it's a lot of numbers, a lot of information, but that concludes the report. What we're proposing is basically this list here in front of you for funding.
Very good. Do you need us to make a decision or consensus on those items at the bottom?
If you're prepared, if not, it's presented to you for consideration. If you want me to come back with additional information, also directors are here and available now for any questions you may have for some of the projects that fall within their preview.
Is this a plan to present at budget time? Because we have all those other dates, or is this separate?
This is separate because we've treated the ARPA money separate from our budget. Once you approve the projects like you did last year, our finance director will then take that and appropriate into the budget itself.
Yeah, but ARPA is separate money
Yeah,
anyway. So.
we've treated it as separate just to keep it cleaner, if you will.
Well, I can tell you with the comments that we hear all the time about this aquatic center, we not only need to put some money in there, we need to get this done as quickly as we can. They're not wanting to wait.
No,
And so I don't know how we can convince what we're going through and how, but we need to somehow answer their concerns and get them on board because they're putting out comments that are negative towards us.
yeah, it's come to my attention that, there's a small percentage of the population that's really pushing for that. I would just kindly remind them that we're in a better place today than we are a year ago, because without that grant money, we would not be talking about even a timeline to make those improvements, right? So the Clean California grant money was just basically a lifesaver to be able to, no pun intended,
even
if
get
we're
to
talking
this
about
point,
swimming
I know.
pools, but it presented as a great opportunity to make those improvements. We would just kindly ask that our community be a little patient. The design is underway. Our public works director met with our design team, the consultant and their team here about a month or so ago, 3-4 weeks ago. So design is getting underway. I figure another month or two, once they're about maybe 15-20% design, we may get a better idea and firm up that timeline for construction. We had said,
Is there a way to speed all those up?
that's what I'm saying. Now that the design team is actually on the job now and they're underway, once they get to start design work, we'll find out, we can firm up that timeline. We had said, early mid of 2024. But if there's no major issues that they anticipate, I think we'll be able to get a better timeline and firm that up. Yeah. We're well aware that there's a faction of the community that's really wanting this done sooner, but we can't go any faster than what we're already going at the present time.
Well, just to prolong it a little bit, I think what happened is we had so much information that went out prior to the last season. And now many of them, especially that they're connected with swimming, are having to transport, and it extends their day and their hours, and it really stirred some of them up, and they came back with just negative.
Yeah, and
We just need to somehow repeat the message out there so that they clearly understand what we've done and how we're just doing best we can.
Right, and I've been in communication with both, the high school, which is one of the main users for their practice swim team, as well as Richland
Mhm.
School District, as they have some swimming programs for their kids as well. But I've been in constant communication with them. I meet with both the superintendent and the school principal every month, and I give them constant updates on where we are with that. So we'll put an update on that. Like I said, now that the design team is underway, we'll sit down with them and see what the timeline looks. What we presented was our internal timeline based on experience with Mike and the engineering team. That was our internal timeline. Now that we have the design team on board, they'll bring a different set of eyes to it, given
Mhm.
the fact that they're doing the work, they'll be able to better tell us, so here's what we think the timeline is in terms of when we'll finish design, when we'll go out to bid, and then start construction.
Well, I think you have us understanding, but I'm just saying the comments that you have to see on social media isn't pleasant, so.
Yeah, our community engagement managers keeping me abreast of those, and we're working to put some messaging out there out to the community as well. So.
Thank you.
I just have two things here. So the balance is, what's left is 715,387.
Mhm.
Okay. And then on ARPA Phase 2 proposal fund list, the mobile library van, when it says underserved Shafter area, what is that really? What is that area? What is the underserved Shafter area will be considered to be?
I'm gonna call up our education director, David Franz, to help answer that.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council. So that would be the areas north of town and Smith's Corner, Colony. Those are the places that I'm thinking of. The places that are far enough out that are hard to walk, but aren't Gossamer Grove, which would have its own satellite library.
It's a brilliant idea. I was just wondering, just for the fact that they're now in the county, that the county territory area.
Right.
Okay. Only reason I'm bringing this up is that being that it is a county, maybe perhaps they could help out some of the costs. Just a thought.
No, that's a good point. The other purpose that I would add is we often have opportunities to do outreach that are, at various sites around the community that are in the city. And this vehicle would be really useful for that. So that's the other purpose. But
Yeah.
I'll follow up with the county.
Yeah, the
Makes
vehicle is an excellent idea,
No,
but I
it
think
is.
it could
It's just-
serve beyond just that, because like he says, the county somewhat has funding again, and so, maybe they should throw something in. We helped them before, so they can help
Instead of
us.
a small van, you get a big van.
Yeah, whatever it takes, huh?
To reel that in, they could, I would imagine they could probably help with the funding on it from a O&M perspective, but using ARPA monies for that, the county can relinquish their ARPA monies to us for the use of this. So the one-time purchase would make sense out of ARPA. The O&M use of it, especially, using in county areas, that would make sense to have a conversation about O&M portions of it. But I think the one-time purchase of it and getting it set up and ready to go out of ARPA makes sense.
But they have resources, other income, other ways of getting income, so that the point is still there.
Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile conversation with definitely, well, it's no secret that the county's current chief operating officer is our former finance director, Mr. Zervis. And I think we have a good working relationship that we can reach out to him and have a conversation to that.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, they could understand that too, I would hope. Other things will come up even in the future that we can still get back to partnering together.
And they did pass Measure K, which will bring in that additional $50 million to the county coffers. And if you recall, those of us that were at the COG awards dinner the other night, they were talking about them opening other libraries. Which,
Yeah, that's right.
right? So we're going to be, it's definitely a conversation. David has a good working relationship with Mr. Service at the county as well. He or I are both going to reach out to him and have a conversation because we are serving an area, but we're putting the children first, but I think the county would appreciate the fact that we're servicing that underserved population for the county that doesn't have access to as Mr. Fran said, Dr. Fran said, come to our, get the library services that they need, right? So they would otherwise, if they had access, we would be the closest library service for them anyways. I think for some portion of the O and M costs, we could put a county of current sticker on the van or something, you know?
No. Councilman?
No, I think this is an excellent idea to do with the mobile library for these underserved chapter areas. And I echo what you're saying. If the county can help offset some of those costs, that'd be brilliant. On the other side of it, the aquatic center, I echo what Councilwoman Prout is saying. I think that we've gone a long time without that swimming pool there, and we have a lot of swimmers. I've experienced the numbers of people that come here from out of the areas when we host swim meets, and just the activity, entire weekends that are spent here with a lot of those families contributing to that. But I think if we could put a priority on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Certainly. And just to add a quick comment on a parallel track, Mary Gibbons made an introduction of a gentleman that is out of Bakersfield that manages a swim program, and that is aligned with the U.S. Olympics.
U.S. Olympic teams. Yes, sir.
Teams. And so they bring that prestige notoriety, if you will. And so it's a gentleman worth having a conversation about what opportunities may exist for an actual operator for the pool. Because once we're doing the construction, but we're not in the pool business or the swim program business. And so it would behoove us to, on a parallel track, explore and do some due diligence on what the operation side of those, the aquatic center could look like.
Yeah, we don't want a pool to get started and ready to go and we don't have any.
Exactly. And there's a lot that goes with it. And something that, you know, it'll be a policy discussion for us to have down the road is that swimming pool aquatic centers and community pools are not money makers.
No.
And so we will be offsetting some of that cost associated with the O and M for the pool once it's operational. But that's a conversation for the future, not today, once we get underway.
I would add to that I think having the conversations, you know, we met with these folks yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think having the conversations now, you know, even though we don't have a quote unquote pool, a usable facility, I don't think this is something that's just kind of sitting to the wayside, waiting for the pool to be built and then going, we need an operator. So these are conversations that are happening now, trying to figure out what that looks like. So the moment that the project is complete, we have someone who can step into that project immediately and begin operating the pool without us having to staff it or figure out how to staff it. It's just not something we do. So good conversation with it. Okay, very good. So at this point, two things that I'm going to ask. I'm looking for a motion and a second for the proposals for each one of the phases for the ARPA spending. However, Marco, do we need to have any other comments? Because it sounds like there's a general consensus here that the extra money would go to improvements to the aquatic center building. Do we need to say something different in the motion for that?
If that's the direction, so that would be merely direction. So you would approve the recommendation along with the direction to staff.
Very good. If there is a motion on the table and you care to add for the direction for the aquatic center, if that be the case, please note that in your motion. And at that point, I am looking for a motion for approval.
So you're scratching out the water meter replacement part as well?
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing the general consensus. So if the motion does if the motion does request to move the money to the improvements to aquatic center building, then just as long as the motion says that, then that's the route we would take.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve and to allocate those extra funds to the improvement of the aquatic center building.
Very good. I have a motion by Councilman Olvera. Looking for a second.
I'll second.
Very good. I have a second by Councilman Alvarado. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Alvarado,
Yes.
Prout,
Yes,
Olvera,
Yes.
Espinoza,
Yeah.
and Gibbons.
Yes, and for clarity's sake, that is approval for the ARPA funds based on the proposed funding list that was given, as well as directing staff to use the remaining balance for improvements to the aquatic center facility. With that said, we good? With that said, there are no additional management items. I'll move into our city manager comments and reports.
Sorry, Mayor and Council, just to the resident that addresses regarding the concern on Highway 43. We'll follow up on that. And we got the contact information, and so we'll follow up with you on, and once we have some more information on about that. I do have a list of items, updates for you real quick, because then I do have our planning director who's going to give you an update. So one of the things I want to present to you, and I believe we handed it to you, was the proposed FY 2023-24 budget schedule. And as we had previously talked, the budget workshops, the council budget workshops will be held on the same night as our regular council meetings to avoid any scheduling conflicts with you. And on here is the start times for each of those. Our first budget workshop will be April 4th. And then followed with April 18th, May 2nd, May 16th, and then the regular meeting of June 6th will present the final budget, and then June 20th will be the proposed meeting for adoption of the budget. Along with the dates and times is the topic that we'll be discussing at each of those meetings. And so this is just informational for you. We are working to, any budget information will be provided to you at least a week in advance, so they have time to review. And then if you need to meet with myself or a finance director with any other financial reports presented to you, you'll have time to do so. So, Mayor, Council, any questions on this schedule? Because this is what we're proposing to go with.
Any questions?
Sounds good till we got my calendar.
Have more people call your people?
Yeah.
Okay. Also, just earlier today, I was contacted by the executive director over at KernCog, Aaron, about a meeting that was supposed to have been with staff only. But they found out last minute that they're actually going to have the high-speed rail board chair, their CEO, their new chief operating officer, and the regional director attend a meeting tomorrow at the KernCog.
What was this for?
The high-speed rail.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch the high speed.
Yeah. They weren't expecting this list of individuals to attend this meeting because this was supposed to be at the TAC level. But they were notified and they found out last minute. And so they reached out and inquired who might be available to attend. So I will be attending this meeting tomorrow at 10 to find out what is being presented. No one seems to know what the topic is other than this list of individuals are going to be there. So I'll be in attendance and then I'll report back to council what the meeting was about. Also, along those lines regarding high-speed rail, just a quick update to council. We reached out to our federal congressmen, both Congressman Valadao and Speaker McCarthy, requesting a meeting. We're working with Congressman Valadao's office. However, the office of Speaker McCarthy politely declined us because they stated that he's not a representative. And so as a professional protocol courtesy among one another within Congress, they won't talk to representatives from constituents of another member's district. So we'll be following up with Congressman Valadao. The purpose of that meeting with Congressman Valadao is to reiterate the city's position regarding high-speed rail, that basically we're not in support, given the track record, no pun intended, with regards to the construction, lack of funding, which we now know based on their latest business plan, they're short $9 billion to complete or to even start the segment from Shafter into Bakersfield. And nor do they have the money for the right of way. And so our position that we like to convey to our congressmen, because it's been made clear by the high-speed rail's executive, their CEO, that without federal funding, they can't complete high-speed rail from Shafter into Bakersfield. So we're hoping that we'll be able to stay our position and advocate that we don't want them to fund high-speed rail.
There you go.
I bet if we go in other parts of the valley, I shouldn't belabor it. Go to Fresno, go to the other places, they won't support it. I mean, they're upset.
Yeah. So one other item, this is good news. there's actually literally a check in the mail for $6 million coming our way from the Board of State and Community Corrections for the new police substation and fire station. I was contacted by a representative from
Finally.
the board, and it's very straightforward. So there's no funding agreement for it. They're basically going to send us a check, $6 million. They'll probably overnight it to us.
Never that easy, huh?
And then it's for us to utilize. I simply had to write an email back attesting that we will be using the $6 million to construct a new substation and fire station. And we have until June of 2025 to complete the project.
I like deadlines.
So yeah, it'll be straightforward, no red tape, unlike the California Clean that has us
Nothing
jumping
but
through
red
hurdles.
tape.
Yeah. So we will moving quickly on the design and construction. We have done preliminary conceptual space programming with Teeter Architect. Once that's completed here in the coming weeks, we'll be able to sole source professional services agreement with the same firm to go into design and then put bid specs and documents and go out to bid. We will be looking to do modular construction, similar to what we went out to tour the JTS modular facility. It's traditional brick and mortars. You can't tell the difference, but if we pursue that type of construction, we anticipate we could have the fire station, police station by the end of the year. And then we got to talk about staffing it and whatnot. But for now, that's the good news. That check's in the mail. Not literally, but it's going to be in the mail.
There's no helicopter landing pad there, sir. I see your face. Yeah, yeah.
All right. Just a few more items, Mayor and Council. I appreciate your patience. The ad hoc committee for economic development met. We retained Cosmont companies. They are a professional industry leader in economic development consulting services. They are one of the premier consultancy advisors when it comes to ICSC, which is the conference we will be attending in Las Vegas. We had a kickoff meeting today with both members of the ad hoc committee to talk about strategies and the work we need to prepare. I'll allow one or both of you to provide any comment on that because it's going to be a lot of work that we're going to be putting in between now and May when we travel to ICSC and the work that we'll be doing once we're there. It's not that we're there to sightsee or any of the amenities in Las Vegas. What was conveyed to us is that we need to take our walking shoes and be prepared to go nonstop for the duration that we're there. So I think we're going to be there about 36 hours and all 36 of those hours will be working time. Pretty exciting. I don't know, Mayor.
It's about a 14-mile task is what they're saying in that 36-hour span. We just got informed of that. Frankly, and I know I said it in the earlier comments today, but I'll reiterate this again. I believe having this company as a retainer, I believe having them working with us. He didn't walk into this conversation, for a minute, though his knowledge is vast. For a minute there, I kind of thought, well, he's just going to talk, but they have already prepared a very, very, very nice outline for the city and given some pretty good indicators that they have already started to reach out to some folks and try to look at what's possible. The data streams that are coming in and out, you guys know me, I love data, and I have not seen data streams like this before. And they presented to us what felt like not little thinking, global perspective. And we're talking to a group of people who have relationships that are deep and an imagination, dreams that are huge. And so I absolutely fell in love with the idea and what he was talking about. I love the fact that he was talking that you can't really have economic development without looking at the housing element. A little segue for you there, Steve. And how he was able to marry these things together and really reiterate what we had talked about Saturday without telling him what we talked about Saturday. This gentleman came in and started reiterating those same ideas and same thoughts that we have just came in and talking about. So it was really an incredible moment that I think we went well over our time allotted, saying it like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Very knowledgeable, gave us a big insight, put this brilliant presentation, putting this plan together for us so that we know we can hit the ground running in a sense, have our schedule set up and make sure, hey, what are we going after? and just get out there and get educated on this and just start planting the seed for our continued growth on a global scale.
Who knows?
So
Maybe even more than that, huh?
We're going for a Winco. Is that what you guys really? I don't know what to say.
thank you
I'll leave
both
that
with that.
alone.
The concert in the park ad hoc committee is meeting tomorrow. Through the effort of the ad hoc committee members and Mary Gibbons, we've invited and recruited some business and community members to participate. And so they'll be attending tomorrow's meeting so we can start brainstorming and planning the first event for concert in the park. You all mentioned the strategic planning workshop. I want to thank you and appreciate your support and the fact that the team was there to engage with you about the priorities and the strategic initiatives. We walked away with three, all of them are strategic initiatives, but the most voted strategic initiatives are surrounding economic development, public safety, and staffing related to recruitment and retention to have a high performance organization. So there'll be more follow-up to the workshop coming back to you as we engage with that. And then staff internally, we are conducting a evaluation of the former modified community correction facility to evaluate if it's worth renovating, salvaging, or is it just better off to demo the entire building itself, the structure itself, to vacant land. But we're conducting an in-house assessment of that, and there'll be more to report to you on that. So other than that, Mayor and Council, that concludes the city manager's update. I'll now invite our planning director who has an update on the housing element. So Steve.
Honorable Mayor and Council, is this on?
It's on.
Did Roger steal it? Honorable Mayor and Council, I'm here to talk a little bit about the ongoing housing element. As you know, we started the housing element with our consultant in the fall of last year. We have now completed all 5 chapters and appendices in draft form. I've done a first review of all of those. I believe you have all had the opportunity to take a look at all of those draft chapters, or at least have the opportunity if you haven't already. I would certainly encourage you to do so. What I'm going to focus on today is essentially chapter 4 and 5. Just to give you a little bit of an overview, chapter 1 is the introduction. Chapter 2 was a housing needs assessment, essentially the baseline conditions and what our housing needs may be. Chapter 3 was resources and opportunities, which described those resources and opportunities that can be used to continue to facilitate the development of housing to meet our regional housing needs allocation, which is again the numbers of houses in various income categories that the Kern COG has generated for us and for the other cities and the county here in Kern. So with that, this is sort of just essentially the outline of this presentation. Just wanted to kind of let you know that a lot of the, there's 3 draft goals that are found in chapter 5. Of that, there are 7 total policies of those goals. And then there are 24 programs, or what you would call implementation measures, to effectuate the goals and policies of the draft housing element. By far, the policies and programs are being driven by government code or state law. They are being driven to accommodate our regional housing needs allocation, to leverage existing programs that we have currently in the city, to support low-income builders and projects as is required by state law, and to support special needs housing and residents. So as you can see, this is the 5 chapters that are in draft form now. And like I said, we're going to focus on chapter 4 and 5. Chapter 4 is essentially a constraints analysis. What are the certain things that could constrain housing in Shafter? It was broken down by a few things such as city limits. Essentially, we have so much land and that has been annexed. There are no constraints to housing by our city limits, as opposed to some other cities that are built out, and now they're having real trouble with getting housing into their geographies. Funding of programs is a constraint only because we do not have sufficient capacity to sort of do our own funding programs for housing. So that's considered a constraint here, just due to just the lack of available staff time to start funding programs to assist low-income builders, that sort of thing. Another constraint is land use control, which was essentially because currently there's some verbiage in our zoning ordinance about commercial floor to area ratio, they call it, and it's a little bit too low. And as part of the update to the housing element, we should revise the zoning ordinance to get it more in line with a higher floor to area ratio for commercial development and allowing residential in commercial zones. Another constraint is processing and permit procedures. It's basically, there are some verbiage in our zoning ordinance that needs to be clarified. That says that a design review is a ministerial process and not a discretionary process. So after this is all said and done, there will be a number of sort of zoning ordinance tweaks that will be necessary to come into compliance with state law. Another constraint is fees and exactions. Essentially because our impact fees are not published on the city's website. I know we're currently working on some nexus studies. So as part of our follow-up to the housing element, we'll be placing those up on our website to be in compliance with law. Not a huge deal in that regard. And then there are some constraints to the variety of housing and types and special needs housing. A lot of them have to do with just essentially zoning ordinance requirements that need to be updated. Essentially kind of a requirement of the Planning Commission design review for farm worker housing conflicts with health code. Our zoning ordinance doesn't allow supportive housing by right in all zones where multifamily and mixed use are permitted by right or conditionally, things of that nature. And I won't go through all of them, but our consultant basically went through our existing zoning ordinance with fine-tooth comb with state law and basically said, these things are currently out of compliance and we'll need to fix those after the housing element has been adopted. And so pretty much everything else is not a constraint, including environmental constraints, essentially like fault zones, flood hazard areas. We don't really have a lot of environmental constraints that would constrain us in developing housing here in town. So that's good. The main focus of this is going to be here on essentially Chapter 5. And Chapter 5 sort of started with a requirement of state law to quantify our objectives for housing in this cycle. And the way you do that is you break it down, our RHNA numbers into various economic categories of extremely low to above moderate. 3294 is our total RHNA, and of that, these are the houses that we need to plan for in the future within our geography at various income levels. Just to give you a little sense, most of it is going to be done by new construction. We did some modest goals for rehabilitation of about 20, basically to facilitate and support the rehabilitation of existing housing. And the conservation is actually one where there may be some housing that is deed restricted that may be at risk of becoming at market value. We've come to find out that none of our deed restricted are at risk of doing that. So there was no conservation goals that we proposed for our housing element. So as I said, there are 3 goals of this housing element. The first goal is to provide a diversity of development opportunities to enhance the city's living environment and to satisfy the housing needs of Shafter residents. And with that, there is a policy 1.1, which is to provide adequate residential sites to produce new for sale and rental residential units for existing and future residents. So that was policy 1. And then there are 2 programs to support that policy. One is there will need to be a rezoning exercise after the housing element to rezone sites to accommodate our RHNA, particularly low income housing. So that is one, and that is being driven by government code. And there is the need for a no net loss law or compliance with that, essentially saying that if for some reason a house that was deed restricted at low income all of a sudden becomes market rate, you have to plan to replace that housing with something else within 180 days of changing that designation. So that is another program that we're going to be following, and that is again required by government code. Another policy of goal number 1 is policy 1.2, which is ensure the supply of safe, decent, and sound housing for all Shafter residents. And with that, there are 2 programs. The first one is essentially providing information, developing and providing information for the rehabilitation and funding of low-income housing. Something that we would essentially put on our website, providing this information to people who would like to pursue that. And then there is also by government code, the need to coordinate with water and sewer providers to make sure that we have sufficient capacity for those services to housing in the future. Now we go on to draft goal number 2, which is to provide housing that is affordable to all economic segments of the community. And with that, there's policy 2.1, which is to assist and cooperate with nonprofits, private and public entities to maximize opportunities to develop and preserve affordable housing. The Affordable Housing Program inventory and grant applications is again to sort of assist people with information about housing program opportunities and to assist them with grant applications as they come in, sort of helping the self-helps of the world in filling out their applications. Partnering with nonprofits in assistance programs, again, to sort of help low-income housing developers be successful. There is the at-risk housing unit program, which is program 2.1.3, which basically we need to review and update our housing units with affordability deed restrictions, maintain contact with public and nonprofit agencies that purchase and manage at-risk units, and assist them in the acquisition or establishing management monitoring notices to convert market rate units and educate tenants on their rights. So that's one that is also required by government code. And then, of course, there's the encouraging accessory dwelling units. We've talked a lot about accessory dwelling units and how they're now allowed by right. We have recently changed our zoning ordinance to further facilitate the development of ADUs by right. And so the accessory dwelling units program is just to continue that policy of assisting, including providing examples of ADUs that we can provide to them, information on how to obtain grant funding for ADUs, how to build ADUs, that sort of thing for people that would like to take advantage of the ability to build ADUs and JADUs within the environment. Draft goal, policy number 2 of draft goal 2 is to review and modify all standard and application processes to ensure that standards do not constrain the production of affordable housing units. This kind of goes back to that constraints analysis we did. And really, I don't want to get too much into them because there's a lot of these, but a lot of these are really being driven by zoning ordinance changes. Just to kind of give you a sampling for 2.2.1, which is residential development standards and processes. We need to annually review our residential standards process to identify constraints to maintenance, improvement, and development of housing, including amending the zoning ordinance to remove constraints and address changes in state requirements through the zoning ordinance amendments. Essentially what we're doing now, recently the ADUs, but continuing to amend our zoning ordinance to stay current with state law. Let's say, for example, 2.24, which is the density bonus, again, a government code requirement. We need to update our affordable housing density bonus provisions in our zoning ordinance to be consistent with state law because currently it is not. Again, something that we'll need to follow up with, and we have to do that within a certain time frame after approving our housing element. Some stuff about having, basically, keeping our website up to date, clarifying our design review provisions. Essentially, when someone comes in for to build a home, they go through a design review with building planning department. Basically, we need to clarify our provisions in the zoning ordinance to match staff practice and to ensure a streamlined permitted process. There are some inconsistencies with their design review. just because our zoning ordinance has been around for 30 years. It's, you know, it changes over time and sometimes it starts to get a little inconsistent with itself. So we just needed to do a good review and make sure that our design review is consistent, internally consistent with itself. And then there are other ones that are essentially related to zone ordinance changes to be consistent with state law. I'll go ahead and move on to policy 2.3 of goal 2, which is facilitate the development of new housing for all economic segments of the community, including lower, moderate, and above moderate income households. And we have one program under this policy, which is infrastructure improvements and other incentives to facilitate housing for lower income households. What exactly does that mean? Essentially, the program summary is to use CDBG funds and available federal, state, and local housing development programs for infrastructure improvements and other incentives to support affordable housing. So that's a program that we'll be working on. Now we go to our third goal. Again, I said there's just 3 goals, but there are a number of policies. This is policy 3.1, which is, the goal actually is to provide equal housing opportunities for all residents of Shafter. Policy 3.1 encourages and supports the enforcement of laws and regulations prohibiting discrimination in lending practice and in the sale of rental housing. Basically providing people with information on fair housing practice, having information on our website, and also having the ability to refer them to outside agencies that deal with fair housing. So that will become a program of our housing element. Policy 3.2 is to assure the provision of housing opportunities for those residents of the city who have special housing needs, including farm workers, the elderly, disabled, large families, and the homeless. The large family one, it was interesting. It's not one that is always necessary, but in our analysis of our census statistics, we came to find out that we have a disproportionate amount of households that have families that are bigger than really the house should allow. So we have large families in houses at a disproportionate rate to other municipalities. Just lots of people in one house living together. So we have a number of programs for that. We have 5 total, most of them, again, being driven by government code. So one is in terms of standards for various housing types, program 3.2.1. This is again a revision to the zoning ordinance regarding the requirement for planning commission level design review for farm labor housing, to address low barrier navigation centers, to allow supportive housing by right, to codify housing definitions, to revise standards, et cetera, et cetera. So again, these are all things by state law that we now need to place into our zoning ordinance that in our analysis, we don't currently have. And so this is a program to put those into our zoning ordinance. 3.3.2, we do have an emergency shelter overlay zone, ES, it's called. It's in the zoning ordinance, but we haven't actually defined where it's located. So that's something that has to be done. We have to figure out where we could locate an emergency shelter by state law. There's, housing opportunities for special needs groups. There's a lot of them, so I'm going to return. Let's see. Basically, give priority funding to development of special needs groups, seek state monies in support of special needs groups, and offer technical assistance and regulatory incentives for projects serving special needs groups. So that's another one that is driven by government code. One that is in part of this policy is coordination with agencies serving the homeless, essentially doing what we do now, working with the county on serving our limited homeless population and their needs. A lot of that is being driven by referring them to the navigation centers that happen to be in Bakersfield. Shafter gives up their current homeless funding to Kern County so that they can facilitate those navigation centers, and we would continue to do that. And finally, essentially we would, the last one is deed restricted affordable units for large households. Again, that's that unique one. So there would be a policy that would come before your board to ensure that at least 25% of new affordable units in a deed restricted affordable housing project have 3 or more bedrooms. This would be specific to low-income housing, but if there was a low-income deed restricted housing, we would make it a requirement that 25% have 3 or more bedrooms to accommodate this unusually large amount of large households, low-income families that live in Shafter. And with that, that pretty much concludes my analysis. This was just for information to sort of give you a sense of what we've been working on for the last couple of months. Our next steps would be to finalize the draft housing element, make it a public draft housing element, schedule additional meetings with the public to solicit comments on the draft housing element. We would prepare environmental documentation required by CEQA for the housing element itself. Then we would submit the draft element to the Department of Housing and Community Development, the ones that would either bless or reject our housing element, and which is the ones that are driving the need for a lot of these policies through state law. And with that, that's really pretty much my presentation. I know that was a lot of information. This little 5 or 3 page white paper condensed about 150 pages worth of documentation. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Or I'm more than happy to provide you with additional materials if you would like to look at the actual housing element chapters again, or if you're not quite sure what to think at this point, I'm always available to talk at any time, you know, when you would like.
Very good. I believe you have a couple questions.
Sure.
Turn your, is your mic on? Thank you.
Just had a couple of questions, Steve, just real quick.
Sure.
And sometimes I don't really understand what this objective chart is. And the reason I say is that the extreme low, what is the range when you say the extreme low and very low, low, moderate, even like in today's time? I know you can't predict, you know, years.
Are you talking about like actual?
Yeah,
actual,
like housing, like what is considered to be like very low income?
It really depends. It really depends on what our medium income here is. And then it's a percentage, you know, you're 80% below median, that sort of thing. I don't have the numbers with me now, but yeah, so like you have a medium income, you know, moderate would be basically a kind of medium. Above moderate, it would mean it's higher than sort of the median income.
Okay,
And
it's just
then-
because they're all gonna be new housing pretty much,
Mhm.
right? And then these numbers come from, how did you gather, how did these numbers?
They're from the regional housing needs allocation.
okay,
That was
okay.
KernCog providing us with
These
the numbers.
numbers,
It's
okay.
basically, these are the homes at different income categories that you have to plan for in your geography over this cycle's housing element over the next 8 years.
And then some of these constraints that they're gonna be, I guess, addressed after the housing element is adopted, right?
Some will. I mean, some may not.
Yeah.
We had to, as part of the housing element and by law, we had to call out our constraints. Now, the ones with funding, like the one constraint that was the funding constraint, we really can't release that constraint because we just don't have the staff capacity to sort of oversee a funding mechanism for people.
And then the one that says processing and permit procedure constraints, what would that be like?
Basically, the fact that some of our permitting is not in compliance with state law, you know, sometimes we have a discretionary approval, and discretionary meaning you have a say, yes or no. You know, I would come and you would be able to approve or deny a project, where really that process should be considered ministerial, meaning if you follow the rules, we cannot say no to you.
Oh, okay.
It's basically keeping at staff level. Like a lot of what I do that you never see is ministerial. You've already set the ground rules, laid the
Right.
ground rules, and I just have to follow them. And if they follow them, then I'm compelled to give them a permit.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
Very good. Any other questions?
Sure. If we follow these guidelines that you're talking about, do we know what complying with all this is gonna cost the city? Do we
What?
have it?
Do I have do
we have an idea how much this is gonna cost us? I mean, we're gonna have to provide services for the homeless. services for the, special needs. I mean, coordinate with their, agencies serving the homeless. I mean, that's gonna open up a whole nother can of worms, isn't it?
Well, a lot of that would be is staff coordinating and doing this. You're already paying me and my staff, a wage. And so this would just become another part of our job. Now, that being said, my planning department is 2 people. There may be a request here in the future for an additional planner to be able to handle it. So the cost would be maybe the cost of another body. A lot of it is providing the information and providing the assistance, but it's not like we really have to fund it. We just have to provide them with information and assistance in obtaining grants or streamlining our zoning ordinance. So a lot of that would be me working with my city attorney, working and revising the zoning order. So that would be a cost of my time that you're already paying for.
Being in compliance with all this is just gonna be an increase in the staff time and work.
For the most part, yeah, because it would be just a matter of us having to revise our zoning ordinance to be in compliance with state law. A lot of it is our zoning ordinance is out of compliance with state law. Someone will have to review it, write it, and then ultimately bring it before you guys to get it approved, to have comment and to approve it. That would be staff spending that time doing that. And that's at a cost that you're already bearing. Now, does that mean that maybe other things, a level of service would be reduced on, let's say, instead of us processing other planning projects in a month, it takes 2 months. It'd probably be an erosion of level of service, but there would be no cost involved. No additional cost involved because you're already paying the planning department to change the zoning ordinance. Now it's just going to be, we've come to realize we've got a lot of stuff we're going to have to change here in the near future to be in compliance with state law, the procedures, the steps necessary, updating the website, that sort of thing.
Hard for me to understand how coming into compliance with all these different changes that are gonna come in place aren't gonna be an excessive burden on the city. I mean, I just find that hard to believe.
If I may, Mayor, through you to Councilmember Espinoza, if the question is, if our municipal code coming in compliance with state law, do we as a city, are we obligated to go out and have to provide these services? Is that what I'm understanding? Because we're not compelled to go out and look for these services to bring to the community. He's just saying that our municipal code, what Steve is describing, administratively, we have to update our municipal code to reflect what this new state law is. But that doesn't mean that we're gonna have to go out there
Right.
looking for these services to bring into the community. Now we're gonna have to provide homeless shelter services or support services or anything like that. If we don't have that need in our community at this time and we don't have those issues like other communities, then no, because we just have to update our code to reflect that. If that's what I'm understanding, the question is by
Okay, but-
compliance, do we have to provide these services? The answer is no.
Some of the costs that we are incurring is having to have a consultant that works on the housing element, as well as a consultant we've had to use for general plan updates. Those are big costs. So it does cost the city in the end, but not direct with what the goals are here.
Right.
Goals can be done with what he's doing. That's the way I kind of see it.
Yeah.
But we have had to spend quite a bit. And we weren't able to go ahead with our other one. We had to
Well, I mean,
because
yeah, I
of the
mean,
EJ group.
our last cycle was
Yeah.
done in-house. It was done by staff.
Okay.
But now that HCD has some teeth, that they have the ability to say, we reject your housing element. And oh, by the way, here's 100 new laws. You kind of needed a subject matter expert, an outside consultant to be able to help the planning department navigate through this current cycle. So you're right.
Let me say, but in the end, Councilman, it's still a draft. And I think one of the reason I asked originally for this to review and to at least give input to, which you and I have sat down and went through that, I've given input to some of those items, is for this very reason. I think it's only wise that we have the opportunity to look at it, ask the questions, and, you know, further discuss it without having to sit down and just, you know, blanket approve something without fully understanding. I think the questions you raise are good questions. You know, being in quote unquote compliance, if you will, is necessary. But to what degree? Are we being in compliance and then wanting to go above and beyond and spending an extra amount of money to do so? Or are we just trying to be in compliance to ensure that we don't have something coming down from us from above, right? So there's two sides to that. So the information you provided was good. That is appreciative. I think the questions coming from council are wise at this point, because this just means that everyone is sitting up here looking at this going, well, what is this going to cost? What is this going to look like? Ultimately, those costs doesn't just come out of our pocket. This comes out of taxpayer money, right? So we are trying our hardest to be as wise as we can with the money that's been given to the city. And so I'm happy for the questions, and I would hope that we continue with that discussion through this.
No, absolutely. And one thing I will say though is it's becoming more and more apparent that state is going to hinge a city's ability to obtain grant funding with compliance with housing law. If we get a rejected housing element, you may not get the next Clean California grant. You may not even be able to apply because they'll say, well, they're not compliant with housing law. They don't have an approved housing element from the state, from HCD. Therefore, you're just not allowed to go for grant funds. That's how they're getting their their teeth.
The flip side of that comment, though, is part of what these plans and goals that are you're noting here require us to utilize grants to actually build under the housing or the infrastructure. So that to me is unique. Why is a state and or federal at this point forcing us to utilize their grants to build infrastructure for some of the housing? There's a lot of oddball questions. We won't give you the grant if you don't follow through. But then again, if you don't use our grants, you're not in compliance, therefore we won't give you a grant. It's in computer programming, it's a circular reference. Johnny would know that one. That's all that boils down to, is we're just redundant in our conversations, and a lot of it comes from the legislative level up above us, which is again the other reason that we go, you know, to the legislative level with the League of Cities with this SB 9, SB 10 situation. Nobody likes it. And I think a lot of what you're having to deal with is part of that as well. So
Well,
yes,
let it be local control. We can make our own decisions. And the
concur,
ones that don't, then take care of them.
concur.
Well, like I said, we try to be very lean on the goals, try to be very lean on all of this. I went through a fine tooth comb, and I basically, if it wasn't by government code, I stripped it from the original draft. So I'm trying to make us compliant with government code. Don't shoot the messenger.
We're not shooting the messenger,
No,
I
we're not
promise.
shooting you, we're shooting the ones that are above.
So
We may be talking to some of our legislative leaders over here. They're in the room to hear this one, so.
yeah,
Good
but
to know.
no, I'm feeling,
think she's
I feel you, and
30.
I've been cognizant of your feelings about this as I've reviewed over the last 6 months. I think we have a pretty lean housing element, no fluff, just the facts to meet standard, so that we can be compliant with law.
Thank you.
For low income housing, what is a price range on that? What's that considered?
For low income housing?
Yeah, it says low and extremely low.
Well, that's not by houses, that's by percentage of median income. So it's how much you make. It's not necessarily the cost of houses themselves. It's they create those ranges by people's income, not by housing ranges.
The same $400,000 home
above market.
for the family who is able to afford it is also the same $400,000 home to the family who's not able to afford it. but they still fall underneath that provision where that has to be offered to that family. So it's not based on how much the house itself costs, but it's based on theoretically how much they make based on it's a calculation based on a median income. So if it's a family of X and they make so much money based on where they live, they're able to apply for that same house at a obviously reduced cost. It's odd calculations, but it
So then these houses with 4 and 5 bedrooms are gonna be lower than what the houses next to them are gonna be bought and paid for that are under regular moderate or higher income houses, but then you're gonna put more people in a house with 4 and 5 bedrooms. Is that right?
Well, you're
More or
gonna plan,
less,
yeah,
yes.
plan for, larger families as part of the low income because we have such a large. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Steve, for your presentation. I know it's never a comfortable presentation to give. Very good. City Manager?
Nothing further. Mayor.
Nothing further. Well, the long awaited recess moment of our lives. I am looking to move into recess, take a quick little break and head into closed session. After that, we have 2 items on closed session: conference with legal counsel for existing litigation pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9A. And item number 2 is a public employee performance evaluation, Government Code Section 54957. I need a motion to move into recess. Anybody want to go
I'll
do
move
that?
we go 8:17.
All right, I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Prout. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Alvera. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign oppose. Hearing none, we are in recess. Welcome back. We are back from recess out of closed session, and I will look to our city attorney for finalization of notes.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier tonight, City Council recessed into closed session. All members were present for the closed session items. There were two on the agenda tonight. The first, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation in the case of California Department of Tax and Fee Administration petitions of the cities of Alameda et al. Versus Williams-Sonoma. City Council heard a presentation from legal counsel, an update on that matter, and we have no reportable action. We also had public employee performance evaluation concerning the city manager. City Council provided direction to the city manager concerning the performance evaluation process and some elements of the performance, and we have no reportable action.
Very good. With that being said, there is nothing further on the agenda for the night. Now comes to your favorite part. I am looking for a motion for dismissal.
So move.
Second.
I have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Prout, second by Councilman Alvarado. All those in favor with aye?
Aye.
Same sign opposed. Hearing none, we're dismissed.